2006, Janis became the third chief executive and first woman to hold the position since the inception of the organization in 1997. In addition to overseeing the $1 billion of bond debt service for Houston's premier professional sports stadiums under her leadership and during her tenure, Houston has been awarded major sporting events, including the NCAA Men's Final Four, Olympic trials, numerous national and world championships, AAU Junior Olympics, World Transplant Games, and a variety of elite sporting events. Burke has been recognized by Conference USA and Rice University for her outstanding contributions and achievements as a woman in the Houston sports industry. She has been identified by the Houston Business Journal as a most admired CEO and named one of Houston's 50 most influential women. How about that? Just that alone deserves a round of applause. The Sports Authority itself is also considered a national leading organization and most recently listed by New York-based Front Office Sports as one of the best employers in sports. Everyone, Miss Janis Burke.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here. I love speaking to groups of women, and I know it's hard, ladies, to pull you back in because you're having so much fun. And I was asked to speak on negotiating skills, and I think this fits in really well. There's some recent research studies out there that talk about how men and women are very different. Women speak 3 times more than men do. Can you believe that? A woman says about 20,000 words a day compared to the average man who shares about 7,000 words a day. Women also speak much quicker than men and spend more time on gossip, and believe it or not, receive pleasure from hearing their own voice. Psychiatrists report that there are inborn differences between the male and female brain, which would help explain why women are more talkative than men. You see, one study reports that the female brain area that controls speech functions actually contains more cells than the male brain. The simple act of speaking causes the emission of hormones in a woman's brain, giving her immense pleasure and the same sensations that an addict might feel after receiving a long-awaited drug fix. So one thing can be guaranteed during this session, that I'm going to talk 3 times faster than a man would to get across my point. You're only going to catch about half of what I say because it's going to be so fast and I'm going to say so many words. And if you don't get anything out of what I'm talking about today and you leave and you think it's boring, I'm going to have a great time because according to this study, I'm going to love hearing my own voice. So let's talk a little bit about negotiating skills for women, because as we just described, men and women are very different. And when, you can go to the next slide. When women and men were given a selection of choices of statements when it came to negotiating skills, men always picked, or most of the time picked, winning a ball game. That looks like a lot more fun than what the women picked. Most of the time women picked it's like going to the dentist. So from the beginning, we look at negotiations very differently than men. And I think because I've been immersed in a men's world of negotiations, I've learned from the guys some of the things that they do a lot better than we do as women. So what if we could reframe negotiations from that going to dentist metaphor to maybe problem solving or having fun? Maybe it's like a competition like the guys look at it. What if we could become so passionate about what we are offering or the way that we look at unique services that we bring to the table, wherever that is, whatever world that you're living in or whatever you have to sell, we all sell. We sell ourselves, we sell our products, we have to sell ourselves to get a raise. Whatever that is, what if we could look at it and believe like the men do and be a little bit more courageous and believe that it actually could be like winning a ball game. The skill sets that we have as women that come naturally for us are, and I'm going to generalize because we're all different. We all have unique fingerprints. So this is a generalization. But what if women who typically are more thoughtful, they're more active listeners usually, they're more engaged because we speak a lot more words, we are pretty natural at being genuine and thoughtful and tuning into subtle messages. And we also are a little bit better at asking for help. We don't have kind of the need or the ego. We're a little bit more collaborative. So what if we could use those, but then also learn from the guys? We're not good as women at asking or embracing our natural tendencies. We're not really good at soliciting higher money, higher pay for ourselves because we want to be liked. And sometimes we close too early when we're negotiating because that tendency to want to be liked or want to be collaborative and not come across as aggressive or bossy puts us at a disadvantage. But what if we could do a little bit more like our counterparts, the males, and come in a little more confident? So this happens a lot. A man will look at a job description that has 10 things listed, and a woman will look at that same job description and say, well, I only have 8 out of the 10. I better not apply. A man's going to start down, and he's going to get to bullet point number 3 and go, I got enough, and he's going to go after the job. And so many times we don't get the positions or the salary or the pay that we want, and sometimes it's on us. And so I think if we could learn to look at it like a ball game, like the guys do, we could have a lot more fun with negotiations and not look at it like we're going to the dentist. So with that, I'm gonna give you a few examples. I picked weightlifting because, and I'm gonna grab this. Is this on? Okay. So I picked weightlifting because it's a male sport. Who cares about weightlifting? It's not real sparkly and shiny like a Super Bowl or a Final Four, some of those other things that we work on. So I picked this one because it was especially tough negotiating it. And then all the way through until we hosted was really, really hard. So I thought this would be a good one as a perfect example to show you what I do on a daily basis and then how some of these negotiating skills come into play. So always know your subject matter at hand. So whether you are going in to sell something to somebody, you're going in to sell yourself on a raise, you're going in to get a job, whatever it is, it can apply. But know your history. So with weightlifting, we had done a junior nationals, and it was a small event, but it was a really successful event, and everybody was super excited. They said a city had never hosted an event like this. It was always a weightlifting club, and everybody, before they got to town, said, how can a city or an organization that is not part of our sport possibly put on an event? But when they left, they were all singing our praises and saying, best event we've ever had. And I said, well, that's great. Why don't we go after a world championship then? Oh, no. You don't understand. The World Championships have never been in the United States, at least for 42 years, because the gentleman who's in his 70s that runs it, he's the president of the whole World International Federation, doesn't like the United States. It was here 42 years ago, and they didn't feed the athletes, and they didn't do this right, and they didn't do that right. LA, Janis, Los Angeles has gone after it twice, and they will never go after it again. It's fixed. There's all these votes by all these countries, and they don't like the United States. They're not coming here. I said, okay, well, that's great history for me to know, but let's take a look at it and see what we can do, because I think we did such a good job with this. Why not go to that next level? So we knew the history. We went in, and we're standing. We had a really good presentation. I worked with the United States Olympic and Paralympic Committee, brought in a weightlifter, Olympic weightlifter, so I knew from the athlete perspective what they were looking for. And we had everything in order. So we fly to Budapest, or I'm sorry, we fly to Paris. This one was in Paris. And we go in and we prepare the night before for our presentation. We knew that they didn't like the food the last time. We knew, all of the various issues. The United States doesn't cover it. It's a big, big sport in Thailand and Russia and some of these other China, some of these other countries. And so the United States isn't going to televise it on prime time. So we knew all of that going in, and we thought, okay, we have our presentation. We know how to overcome that. And so I'm standing in the hallway, and we had, we flew in, we went to the meeting room, we all practiced our parts, and we're standing in the hallway, and we had our little gift, and I thought it was really cool. It was the little cufflinks for everybody. They were all men. It was all men in that room, and we had men from South and Central America. We had Asian men. We had Russian men. I mean, but there wasn't one woman. There had never been a woman on this executive committee that we were presenting to. And so we knew that, and going in, and in fact, I had even said to our team, do you think that me as a woman, I'm going to be kind of detrimental to the bid because I want to win it for Houston? And we've put a lot of time and effort into this. And they said, no, just, it'll be fine. Just present like you always do. Okay. So we're standing there, and we had bought these little cufflinks as gifts. I thought, oh, that's really cool. They'll like that. And so we're there, standing there with our little packages, and we're waiting our turn, and we were up against a couple of countries, but one of them was Thailand, which was a really big weightlifting country. And so the guys from Thailand were before us, and so we watched them, and I hear all this clamoring down the hallway, and I look down the hallway, and I see bell carts coming with all the gifts they were bringing into that room. And I'm looking at our little gift that I thought was cool, and then there's all these TV cameras, and they're following this guy. And I looked at our team, and I looked at the guy from the United States Olympic and Paralympic Committee, and I said, who is that? Who are all these, what are all this media attention on them? And he said, oh, that's the Prime Minister of Thailand. And I'm thinking, oh my goodness, we are in trouble. All of a sudden, what I felt so proud of, and I was so courageous, and I knew that we were going to win, all of a sudden I thought, how are we going to win this against that? And what I didn't know, because we had to stay on the outside of the room, and once they got behind closed doors, was that the Prime Minister and his team were showing slides of their beautiful country. And he was saying, look at how beautiful our country. If you choose us, not only will you get to come and visit, I will pay for all of you, this executive committee. I will pay for your flight. You can bring your significant other. When you land, there will be a private helicopter at your beck and call. And going through slide after slide, you'll get to see this, and you'll get to see that, and you'll get to do this. And, oh, by the way, did I tell you we'll give you $5,000 of spending money, each of you, if you choose our country? And because I'm the Prime Minister and I can do this, we're taking the bid fee up from $500,000 to $1 million. So the bid fee, we had worked into our budget. It was a very tight budget. And there was no way that we could do that. But I didn't know all that was going on. All I knew was we got a text from one of the executive committee members that was voting, that was friends with the USOPC gentleman that was with me, said they just took the bid fee to $1 million. That's all we knew. So he looks at me and he says, Janis, they just took it to $1 million. We have to take it up to $1 million. I said, I can't do that. And he says, you have to. This will be the United States' third time going for this. And if you don't, all of America, everybody's expecting this. It hasn't been there in 42 years. And I'm saying, but you saw how tight that budget was. How can I do that? I can't go home and be responsible for all of this extra money. And he's like, well, then we're going to lose. We're going to lose. And so I start pacing in the hallway, and I'm thinking, just hold it together. You've prepared. You know your experience. You know what you bring to the table. You know what you can do for this sport if they choose the United States. Just hold it together and think clearly. And so I started to think, well, how could I make up that money? Well, maybe if we go in and we give our presentation and we say, we're willing to match and take that bid fee up, but only if you give us all the international television rights and all the live streaming rights. Give that to us. Again, I had done my homework, and I knew the history. They hadn't made very much money. They hadn't done really well, even though they were all over the globe. And so we go in, and our presentation's very different. Here's what we posted, and you can kind of start flipping through. Here's where, we've hosted Super Bowls and Final Fours, and we do tennis masters and Olympic trial events, and we talked about what we brought to the table for them. And we talked about how good we were in the United States with live events and electrifying the crowd, and what it would do for their sport if they chose us. And so we stuck to the script, we stuck to what we had rehearsed, and when we got to the end, I said, now I'm willing to bring the bid fee up, but what I would ask is that you give us the international television rights. Well, no international federation does that. They just don't. And they looked at me and said, okay, well, what would you do with those rights? And so I talked a little bit about all of the changes and the differences that we would make if that happened. So, sometimes when we're doing presentations, it's to like every country gets a vote, and it's a room like this. In this particular case, it was just a room around an executive committee table, and the executive committee, about 25 members representing different countries were voting. So we went out of the room, they took their vote, we came back in, lo and behold, Houston won, and Thailand couldn't believe it. They packed up their things and left. They were so embarrassed and so upset, but here Houston won. So the next part of the negotiations, if you go to the next slide, was harder than the first part of the negotiations, which I wouldn't have guessed. But we were dealing with a gentleman who ran the International Federation that was in his 70s. It's the oldest sport in the Olympics, weightlifting. And they have all these traditions. And all of the things that we wanted to do that I had promised we would do, I couldn't do unless I could convince them that to let us change some things. And even television, I wasn't going to be able to get all of the money so that we can make the budget work if I couldn't convince him. And if you think that convincing somebody who used to be part of the KGB, who was an old geezer from the International Olympic Committee that was set in his ways and believed that their sport was so sacred we couldn't touch things that we wanted to touch to make it more exciting, if you think that was easy, it was not. But what we did is we built the reputation with them. We went to all of their events. We observed the strengths, the weaknesses. You can flip to the next slide. We studied everything that we thought made it so boring and staunchy, and we began to put a list together of all the things that could really excite the sport. Now, this is the way that normally their backdrop would look. It'd be an old stage with a bunch of banners in the background. And we started to talk about, but what if you did a video stage? And what if you had this grand entrance? And what if we could put a logo on the floor? And so we started talking these ideas, and it freaked them out. Those lights it's going to be too bright for the athletes. They're not going to be able to lift with those bright lights. They're not going to be able to do this or that. So we kept mocking up. Go to the next slide. This was our mock-up, and we said, but look at how much more exciting this would be and how great it'd be for the audience. You're talking about an American audience that could care less about weightlifting. I've got to make them care, so trust me, and let's go with this. And so month after month, we talk about it. They finally did. This is what our stage ended up looking like. Go to the next. And it was versatile. Go to the next. We're going to just flip through these. And we could change it up so that day after day it could look a little bit different. It excited the athletes. It made it more fun for the audience. It was great for television. We used these sideboards and said we could do social media postings. They're like, well, what if somebody posts something that's really bad? Well, we could have it delayed a few seconds, and we can have somebody at a table that doesn't put it up there if it's really bad. But we want to engage our audience. Go to the next. We wanted to be able to show playbacks, and we wanted to be able to show them in the warm-up room. Oh, no. we don't show anything that's happening in the warm-up room. Well, why not? That's what the audience wants to see. Keep flipping. We will be able to tell the audience that doesn't understand, this American audience that doesn't understand metrics. We're a weight system here, so we don't understand kilos. And so we'll be able to use that backdrop, and we promise we'll make it still when they're lifting so it doesn't disturb the athletes. Keep going. And what happened, and we created a coaches area down in the corner. You can see the coaches area. That was great for television. We could catch their expression. Next slide. You'll see their expression there as a record is broken. So we built that up in the audience, and then we could tell the story through the expressions. Keep going. We built a hallway. They had never had like an entrance. And this was actually someone else's idea, not my idea. It was our television production company. I didn't know anything about television rights. When I negotiated that, it was just about, I guess I'll be able to figure it out. I had to go all over the world for 3 years trying to learn how to do television. But these partners were great. Keep going. You can kind of feel from the pictures the excitement of the athletes. Keep going. And then the loaders. This was another, you would think this would not be an area of negotiations, but the loaders we made part of the show. So they would always be on the weightlifters were on a stage like this, and the loaders were down on the floor. And they'd have to run up the steps every time a new person would come, and they have to put the new weights on, and then they'd have to run back down the steps, and they were always running late. So that was another problem with television. Television couldn't run it on time. And so I said, well, why don't we put the loaders on the stage? Oh, no, they cannot share the stage with the athletes. Well, what if I made them part of the show? Well, we'll clothe them. They'll run out there. They'll all stand at attention. They'll sit together. It'll be like a part of the show. And that went right up till the very end. In fact, before they got to town, they said, absolutely not. We built the stage that way anyway because I was counting on them changing their mind when they saw it. And I compromised a little bit. We had one little step down. But it became really a fun part of the show. Next. The other thing that with the lights and the backdrop of the video that no one expected, and you probably can't see it from there, but was the sparkle of the powder. It kind of gave this shimmer to the stage. Next. And then the other thing is I said, well, what if we put a logo on the platform? So no matter what angle the cameras are, you could see that. Number one, I wanted Houston to get that promotion, but I thought it would be cool. And we could do an unveiling. You can go to the next slide, which we ended up doing. It became part of the media to be able to see this secret floor that had never been done before. But again, they thought it was going to distract the athletes, that it was not a good idea, or the athletes were going to slip on it. I'm like, no, we'll make it part of the wood grain. Let's do something different. And that was a lot of talking them into it. But look what happened the very next year at the Rio Olympic Games. They loved it so much, they ended up putting it in the middle of the floor. My compromise was I had to move it up and put it in the corner and make it kind of not as conspicuous. But they loved it so much, and it became such a great unveiling for the media that's what happened the next year. Next. We did a pre-sale. They'd never done a pre-sale. We said, let's sell VIP tickets and let them go watch warm-ups. Oh, no, you cannot watch another country warm up. Why not? Anyway, we did it. You can see all of the tickets that sold. Western, we incorporated a Western theme. They'd never done that before. Keep going. We had the bolo ties as medals. I said, instead of just regular stands, what if we took whiskey barrels and cut them and made those the stands? Go to the next slide. You can see what happened. And what a spectacle, right? To see the Russians in a cowboy hat holding the yellow rose of Texas and standing on a whiskey barrel. It became part, again, of this great media show. Next. We brought in the American style. So bring your own personality to negotiations. Whoever you are, you're unique. You have a unique skill set. You have unique ideas. Bring that to the party. So we did. We said that mascots, they didn't know what mascots were. We said we're going to have mascots throwing out T-shirts in between the event. We're going to bring bands, American bands, all this stuff, which we did. We also made fake weights. They'd never done that, but we went around to all these youth groups and got them interested in weightlifting because we wanted to build a natural audience in our hometown. Men, women, kids, they loved the fake weights. They felt like strong men. We ended up, there was a Boys and Girls Club that loved this so much, we donated a weight set after the World Championships that they still all, they all train on. But it's a great way for kids, especially underserved areas, because it doesn't cost a lot of money. The entry to barrier is good. We did a parade. This was another thing about understanding cultures. We said, well, we've got the Thanksgiving Day parade. We'll put them in a parade. I mean, they've never had this kind of attention. And the guys from North Korea are like, no, we don't do parades. We finally realized in some of these countries, the only parades they'd ever seen were military parades. And it freaked them out. So we had to put up videos in their meal room to show them, no, we're talking Mickey Mouse. This is going to be fun parade. Well, they had a ball, and they've never had that kind of attention ever on weightlifting, especially in America. Next. We did red, white, and blue instead of the normal gray steel. We Americanized it. We put the Texas colors out there. Next. And we even did the end caps, which they had never done before, and those were in red, white, and blue. Next. The interaction with the fans was something that they were not used to, and we showed them that by having a fan fest area and through social media that it could enhance their sport. Next. And once the negotiations were all over, and it was a long fight, it was a long 3 years of my life, but when it was all over, something magical happened. I think you'll be able to tell from the pictures. The athletes actually, and the audience, we had packed house, and the athletes, the emotion, they had never seen anything like it. They were so excited. Next. We broke 10 world records that week. We were over the entire globe. These are the deals that I cut, and believe me, when I tell you, I knew nothing about broadcasting or television when I started. But this is where we were shown all over the world. Next. We were televised in 182 countries with over 900 million homes. I didn't know I had that in me. I didn't know I could do that. You don't know what's in you that you could possibly do. Take that first step. Next.
And that was good, but it's not as good as this. Our bonus top play. From the IWF World Weightlifting Championships, the 75-kilogram weight class, North Korean competitor Rim Jong-seem, in one of her clean and jerk attempts, she falls to the ground in pain after the lift. She's got like 341 pounds over her head.
Easily do that.
Limping as she walks up? I don't think so. In her final attempt, watch, she's going to stumble and fall to the ground, and she's slow to get up. They help her off, still unable to walk on her own. Fellow competitors help her to the medal stand. Olga Zabuba, the gold medalist in the clean and jerk, one of those helping her to the stand. Rim Jong-seem won the silver medal in both the clean and jerk and the total overall. Sportsmanship, always a top play.
Sports.
We made the ESPN Top 10 playlist with weightlifting. Who would have ever thought that? And that gentleman that was on, that was putting the medals around, he was the chairman of the board for the United States Olympic and Paralympic Committee. Called me, said, I'm hearing all kinds of things in Houston. I got to fly down and see what you guys are doing. So it became a great thing for Houston. I'm going to wrap up with this. If you can go to the last slide, because I think some of you might want to hear about negotiations. And anyway, the results were phenomenal. These are just other bids that I've done, but the results were phenomenal for Houston. Without that ESPN Top 10 playlist even counted, it was over $55 million worth of free publicity for Houston, Texas. Now, I want to end with this. Some of you think, well, that doesn't really apply to me, any of that stuff. It does. Tap into your creativity, know your history. No, without me knowing and understanding that budget, I wouldn't have come up with this idea of, well, let us have the International Federation rights. By the way, the most they had ever made was $200,000 on those rights. We made them over $2 million. And that helped us put the budget together, and they had more coverage than they'd ever had before. So be courageous, tap into what your gut is telling you. And then let me just talk a little bit about the salaries. I'm going to say 5 things. 1, ladies ask for it. Men will ask for it, and that's what I've learned over the years. We have more reason than men to ask for it because the men got what they wanted when they first got the job. So go ask for it. You will get it. Women who ask are more than twice as likely as women who don't to get a raise or to get some sort of promotion. 2, specify the amount. The person who puts that first thing on the table, and I'll never forget it, because I remember with the first time in 2016 when we had men's Final Four, we needed somebody who could get up every day concentrating on it. So we hired a gentleman, and the things he demanded, I was like, oh my gosh, I've never negotiated this way, but I learned a lot by negotiating on the other side of the table with him. And so he actually came in and made more money than I did, but I knew it was the right thing to do. We needed somebody. We were on a fast track. We had to get that and make it a great event. And so about a year later, I'm like, well, someone's going to notice. My board's going to say something. Somebody's going to, they're not going to let me get paid less, right? I'm help coaching him. No, they will let that happen all day long. And it wasn't until I asked for it, and I went into the meeting, and I'm all prepared, and I got all these arguments, and I'm just like, I don't think it's great for our organization. We got someone who's reporting to me, making and I'm going through all these gyrations, and it was all men. And they looked at me, and they said, Janis, what do you want? Oh, I guess I should have told you that when we came in the room. Well, if you would pay me this, I said, done. It was that easy, and here I had been for months squirming and worrying, and somebody's going to notice, and we do that as women to ourselves. And so I learned a long time ago, ask for it. Boldly ask for what it is that you think is fair and that you want. Prepare, do rehearsals, role play, whatever you need to do, talk to others, get coached up, but prepare, and then 4, think beyond yourself. Women do better if you think beyond yourself. The reason I did well in that weightlifting negotiations, because I was thinking, oh my gosh, I'm going to let America down. I'm going to let Houston down. I've spent all this money to fly over here to Paris, and I'm going to come back and we're going to have lost this business. When I got out of myself and thought of others, and women do better if you're negotiating on behalf of your family, your company, on behalf of the needs of the organization. Put those needs ahead of yourself, and you will come up with creative ways to be a winning negotiator and to make it a win-win situation. So with that, I'm sorry I ran a couple minutes over, but I really appreciate you having me. Thank you.
Isn't Janis amazing? Another round of applause. And just go get it. Go ask for it. So you leave here today and you go